What's going on, YouTube? OCD for EDC here, and what I got for your face balls today is this guy. This here is the Paragon Knives E-Stiletto. It is in CPM S30V, and these, from my understanding, come from North Carolina. And this knife is 12 3/4 inches long. This thing has a I think it's 5 3/4 inch blade. So quite interesting. So we'll throw out a few size comparisons here if I can actually get this thing all the way on screen. Here it is against the Cold Steel 8015. Here it is against another large knife. This is the TwoSun TS-162. So as you can see here, yeah, this thing's a beast for sure. Here it is against the Tuya knife Cebu. So give you some sort of idea, and I guess just to throw a really popular knife out there, just for kicks. There it is against the Benchmade Bug Out. So the Benchmade Bug Out overall, I can't remember how long they are overall, but you can see there, actually the handle is longer on the E-Stiletto than the entire Bug Out. So yeah, actually they're about perfect. So there you go. That's how big the E-Stiletto is. So blade on the E-Stiletto, let's just get we'll get a proper measurement here. So 5.35 inches. And like I said, it is S30V, and we're looking at just under 1/8 of an inch, 119 thousandths on the blade stock. And height on the blade is a little over 3/4 of an inch, about 7/8 of an inch, 866 thousandths. So what we're looking at is we have aluminum handle, like most OTFs, and S30V. You do have sharpened blade edge all the way on this here, and then you're also sharpened on the backside with a small section of serrations. This portion right here from this plunge grind out to here is not sharpened, although it is ground, almost looks like it should have been. But anyway, so you do have a fire button here. This is a single action OTF, so you've got this little switch right here to slide the knife back in. You do have a safety right here that keeps you from depressing the button. Does have a pocket clip, and surprisingly, this thing goes in the pocket quite well. As long as your pockets are deep enough to handle an 8-inch long handle. I'll show you here. So we're 550 thousandths thick. So just a little over a 1/2 inch thick. And then in this dimension here, the height of it, if you will, is right at 1 inch in the smaller area, and then out on the end here you're looking at 1.18 inches roughly, and then up here where you've got flares out on both sides, 1.37 inches. So it's relatively compact for its length, and like I said, it doesn't weigh a tremendous amount, so it actually carries quite well. It's a little ridiculous to shoot this blade out, though. If there was ever a knife that isn't lunchroom approved, this is probably it. So you just over 6.5 ounces for a knife that overall is 12 3/4. Pretty ridiculous. So here's the action, and this is my first experience with a single action OTF. I have a few dual action OTFs. Which I certainly like the dual action more. However, I got this thing in on a trade, and I wasn't real familiar with this brand Paragon. So here's the box for it, and you can see made in the USA. Like I said, they come from Asheville, or there you go, Asheville Steel, Asheville, North Carolina. And then, yeah, that's really it. There's the part number there. But yeah, you know, it looks well made. The aluminum's nice. There are a few little nicks and scratches on it, but like I said, this was a used knife that I got on a trade. And then they have the Paragon Asheville Steel logo right there. Nothing on the back side. So, real quick, I am going to open this thing up and let's take a look at this. And I'm going to show you, actually, before I do that, I'm going to deploy the blade just to release the spring as much as possible. And then we're going to open this up and take a look at how this single action OTF operates. It's kind of interesting the way it works. You know, dual action OTFs are not... Ooh, hopefully I didn't lose the other spring already. I hope. So the springs on this are actually fairly loose and just they don't have a tremendous amount of tension behind them. Like I said, this was my first experience with a single action OTF, so I didn't really know exactly what to expect. All right. So you can see here, we actually have got 2 coil springs, quite long, but the wire diameter is very small, and so there's not a whole lot of tension here. But on the blade, let me remove this button real quick. You can see that when the blade is retracted, so you've got an internal stop pin that is pressed into the blade here, and that rides in this track right over here. And so that sits like so. You can see the reason there's the cut down the middle of the knife is for the button that releases it. And you've got actually 2 internal stop pins, so that keeps the blade straight with the handle. So when it's in its deployed position, these springs sit in this milled track right here. So you can see that the springs are even longer than the groove right at the moment. So you have, you know, they're under tension all the time. However, you can see how long those springs are. And so when we close this, those springs are completely piled into that area right there, which is pretty crazy, really. So you've got many inches of spring there that goes down to, you know, less than 2-inch space. So that's how that operates. So your button sits down into that notch right there. And so when you deploy the button from the other side, you're pushing down on it. It brings it out of that hole, and then the blade slides along and then locks out right there. And then the button goes back into this hole here. And to detract the blade, you got to push the button, and you can see this space right here that has some jimping. There's an open groove along the side of the knife, and you pull the blade down to tension the spring and essentially cock the knife. And so when the handle halves are together, I'll just show you here, you've got this open groove right here, and that's for the actuator, if you will, for the single action portion. That jimping sticks through that area, and that's what you use to pull the blade down. Now, it works well, and it's fine to use, but I let my son, who's no stranger to knives, I let my son use this thing right when I first got it, and he wanted to check it out, and he had his finger over, and I should, you know, it's my fault, I should have explained it better to him, but he had his finger over that area, and when he deployed the blade, his fingers are smaller, and so they got down in there enough that blade cut him going out. So definitely a little bit dangerous if you're not paying attention, and you know, if you don't know what it is you're expecting. And he didn't. Like I said, it's really on me, because I should have told him what was going on there, but I didn't think about it. I didn't think that he was gonna have his finger shoved in there. But so anyway, on the button, you know, it's pretty standard fare, like a button lock. You know, the button has a growing taper, so the spring underneath it pushes it up through that hole that I showed you in the blade. I can show you here. The button sits down. I guess it's got to go through this way. Sits there, and then when the blade's cocked, the spring pushes it into that recessed hole right there. So, and then when you push the button, then that allows the spring tension to throw the blade out. So pretty cool, pretty simple. Just a real easy, simple way to manipulate the blade, and yeah, works well. So one of the interesting things about this knife, as you're looking at the openings around the handle, you can see that in the end there's a hole right there. So I'm going to show you how to put this thing back together and why that hole is there. So for those that don't know and that have never messed around with a single action OTF, like I said, the spring tension is, or the springs are longer than the space that they ride into. So I'll move that into a white area. So you can see that's the two springs are touching right there, and they're bottomed out right here. And there you go. That's where the springs are. So in order to get these springs in there without, you know, as you try to tension them, they want to do that sort of thing and bunch up and whatnot. So the way to do this is kind of, well, it's pretty simple. Like I said, not a huge deal, but I got to get this button figured out. Oh, and if I didn't show, there is a little slide lock right there, safety. So you can do that, and it just keeps you from deploying the button. So not a big deal. All right. Okay. And then we've got the spring that sits in the button right there. So we're going to go ahead and move the blade to the deployed position. And then I've got a piece of clothes hanger right here. So I'm going to put these two springs on this piece of wire. Just like this. Oop. And the clothes hanger, if you can see this. So as no matter how much I tighten those springs, you can see that the clothes hanger keeps them relatively straight. Not perfect, but close enough. And so I'm going to set this down in this groove right here. And I'm going to allow that blade to come to its kind of resting spot, if you will. Now I get that. Okay. Now, the tricky part becomes, how do you get your fingers out of here? All right. Now, I need to take a tool off to the side here, and I just need to move that spring up just enough so I can get it lined up. So this allows you to have this, so my clothes hanger, so now my handle's put back together, and my clothes hanger, I'm not going to pull it out until I get a screw in there. But then I can just pull the clothes hanger out, and we should be good to go. So only 3 screws hold this entire knife together, which is, I guess, you know, really it's all you need. It works just fine. But it just, you know, for such a large knife, you would think that it would be more involved than that, I guess. Yeah. like I said, my first experience with a single action OTF, and kind of interesting, real simple in their the way they work. So that's what the hole's there for. At least that's what I'm using it for. I'm sure that's what it is, though. It didn't come with a tool, so I just cut a piece off of a clothes hanger. So let's see here. So there you go. The knife is cocked. And there you go. Pretty interesting. So I'll show you. Let me cock that really quick. So you can see there the blade. Maybe you can see where it is. But it will absolutely, it's close enough to cut you. I guarantee you. You can start to see the edge right there. The tip of the blade sits down a little further, so it's not quite as close to that edge. But the first time that my son opened this knife, he like had his fingers on the end down here, and it cut his fingertips pretty good when it opened. So it doesn't open with a tremendous amount of force. You know, those springs aren't crazy tight, but you know, it certainly opens reliably. And if you have it pointed down so gravity's helping you, then it opens pretty fast. So anyway, guys, that's about all I got to say about the old Paragon E stiletto. You know, I think it's a well-made knife. Like I said, I'm not real familiar with the brand, but you know, it's certainly got a nice edge on it. And yeah, I think these sell for, you can find them on Blade HQ. I think this particular version with the little bit of serration right there in the red and black is sold out. But they go for like anywhere between like $220 to $275. And you know, if you want just a full-on pocket sword, this is that's your guy right there. Check out the Paragon E stiletto. Definitely a cool knife, definitely well made, and yeah, definitely a cool one for sure. So anyway, guys, thanks a lot. Have a good one. Hope you enjoyed that, and we will talk to you later.